Listen.
Welcome to the Brian for Mayor Digital Battle Bus. Welcome to Battle Bus Live. I am Brian Rose, and we are live here on the Digital Battle Bus, visiting the boroughs of Bexley, Bromley, Croydon, which I'm going through right now. You can see the buildings behind me, and we're heading over to Greenwich. We're then going to take the ferry across the River Thames, and we're going to make it back to our homestead. Super excited to be with you today. As you can see, on this Saturday, we have some fine British weather behind me. It's quite moist out there, which is good. It makes our green spaces even greener. And we've had an exciting morning, I won't lie to you. We were over at Bexley, which is home to the Crossness Pumping Station. And if you don't know much about that, that's Sir Joseph Bazalgette's contribution to what was at the time London's major sewage problem. The River Thames used to smell so bad, it had so much sewage in there, and thanks to the folks in Bexley, they pretty much solved that with the pumping station, and also thanks to James Watt's steam engine. And that is James Watt, as in the unit of energy watt. When I was at MIT learning engineering, they taught me about this unit of energy called a watt. I never thought that one day I would be mayor of the city where that man built the pump. So I was super excited to be there. I'll be honest, I geeked out a little bit as an engineer. And we also got a visit from the local police. I just posted that picture on Instagram, so go check it out. They were following us around. They probably just wanted a picture with me and the bus, and I totally get that. And again, we really appreciate the police officers out there. And I'll talk more about a few run-ins we've had with them recently. Next, we went on to Bromley and actually went to Charles Darwin's house. It's called Downes House, and this is the actual structure where he penned the book, The Origin of Species. That idea that the survival of the fittest, that whole concept happened in Bromley. So we're just super excited to be in Bromley. Thanks for having us. And I took a tour of the outside of his house. You know, this whole concept of the survival of the fittest, or the best idea wins, is why we've been so successful and why we are going to be your next mayor of London, because we have the best ideas and you know it, and that's why we're going to take them there. Unfortunately, in politics, it seems to me that the worst idea seems to win most of the time. I'm sure you've experienced that as a citizen, and we're going to change that on May 6th when we have free and fair elections. Next, we got to Croydon, which is where we are now, and right near me here is the Brit School of Performing Arts. That's the same school that produced Adele. Yes, Adele, that worldwide known pop singer. Also, Amy Winehouse. She went to the Brit School, as well as the actor Tom Holland. So I want to thank Croydon for producing such incredible talent, and also thank you for having us. I'm going to be talking about some of your local issues. And now we're heading over to Greenwich. Greenwich is home of the O2 Arena, or as Drake would said, turn the O2 into the O3. I love that place. And also the Royal Observatory is there. I've been there with my daughter. We walked around. We saw the incredible clocks that also created longitude, and that's where Greenwich Mean Time is, and the Meridian is right there. So we're coming through to see you in Greenwich. It's been a packed out day. It's a Saturday, but we don't stop over here, because becoming your next mayor of London, it's so important to us. We have to do it, because we can't sit by and watch this current crop of politicians run the city that we love into the ground. If you feel that way too, please leave me a comment right now wherever you're following us. Share this video to your friends and family. Let them know that something big is happening in London, and we think we're going to change the future, and we think this will be a model for all cities around the world. I just want to say, before I get started on today's topic, that a lot of these boroughs face some real local issues. And I know in Bexley, you're facing problems with not having enough transport infrastructure getting you into London. I think that's a real issue, because if these outer boroughs can't connect to the center, it's not exactly the centralized commerce that we want. So we're going to be looking into those issues for Bexley. Also, you have 32,000 houses that are supposed to be built in Bexley over the next 20 years. We need to make sure that happens. Your current mayor of London has a history of breaking his promises when it comes to building houses. And he promised us 400,000 new homes over the past 5 years. Do you know how many he's delivered? 12,000 homes. That's 3% of what he promised. So I would say to Bexley, we've got to make sure you get those homes built by holding our elected officials accountable. Also, Bexley knows you have the lowest number of GPs in any borough. This is a real concern. And recently, we were actually quite concerned that the Bexley Council has pushed for 14 million pounds of spending cuts, including the closure of children's centers. And I want to talk about that today. Also, in Greenwich, struggling from real problems there, 43% of the borough's children in Greenwich live in poverty. That's 21,000 children right now are in poverty, some struggling to get regular meals every day. It's the third worst borough in London, and it needs our attention. Councillor Sarah Merrill recently said that, quote, food banks were created for people with no public funds. And yet today, they are an essential, recognized part of our social security system. Something's wrong with that. Something's broken here. And you got to look to the top. Look to the top floor in the City Hall. That's your current mayor of London. He is failing us, and he has broken his promises repeatedly. And I know a bit about food banks. We were recently at the Barking Food Bank, and I went and saw Obi, who's an incredible guy. He actually came to London from his native country in Nigeria, and he's running an incredible service there with the food banks. And we brought him a lot of long life milk. We brought him tinned meats and vegetables, and we really support what he's doing there. And he said they're needed now more than ever. Next, let's move on to Croydon. We're going through Croydon right now in the downtown. Croydon effectively declared bankruptcy last year. Yes, you heard that right, bankruptcy. It's got a £67 million hole in its budget, and it's projected to overspend next year by £47 million. Your former chief executive, Joe Negrini, left allegedly with a £440,000 severance package. £440,000 severance package, that's in times of COVID. I think we need to hold our leadership accountable, and this is unacceptable. And finally, I want to say to the people in Bromley, we know that your council is trying to commercialize your parks and open spaces, and we stand with you that your parks and your open spaces are not for sale. So again, I appreciate all the time, and I appreciate you having us here in these boroughs today. And I want to talk about a few issues today. First of all, I want to talk about the obvious, and that is this. Our current mayor of London has failed our communities and our younger generations by slashing budgets and breaking his promises. And I'm going to talk about the detail because when he was elected in 2016, he pledged to, quote, invest in and protect youth services in London right now. This was 5 years ago. Instead, he's cut spending, he's closed our youth centers, and he is creating what is called a quote-unquote lost generation. It's unacceptable, and I'm going to go into the details. Second, I want to show you the impact of his broken promises, and that includes an increase in youth crime. Recently, the 100th teenager was murdered on his watch. This is unacceptable, and it's getting worse every year he's in power. Do you want 3 more years of that? I think we know the answer. Next, we've seen higher youth unemployment, and we've seen a mental health crisis for our children. Lastly, I want to give you my solution to community crisis. I have a solution, and that is this. You have to understand that an effective community requires 5 things. First of all, it requires people that want to help. Secondly, you need people who need the help. Thirdly, you need infrastructure. Fourthly, you need communication. And fifthly, you need cash. I have a solution for all 5 of those things in a way where we can open community centers, give our youth real options, and turn this city around and take it into the future. I'm super excited to share these ideas with you, and I want to hear from you. So we are streaming on a lot of social networks on right now. I want you to answer your questions or answer these questions right now. Type them in the chat. I'm literally going to read them out live while I'm here. First of all, tell me, what borough do you live in, and what question would you like to ask me? Second, I want you to tell me, do you think the mayor has failed our communities and younger generation by slashing budgets and breaking his promises, and tell me why? Next, do you think it was right recently for the police to detain us? And I'm going to tell you about that story. Recently, they fined us and they told us we could no longer campaign. And finally, I want you to tell me, do you think that free and fair elections should take place on May 6th? Do we need new leadership? Do we need new ideas? And do we need to take London in a new direction? So before we get started, I just want to give you an update. I am streaming live from the Digital Battle Bus, and this is something we created in order to effectively communicate with you, and also for me to get out in these boroughs. It's great to be here and to get out on the streets and see the issues you're really facing, because every borough is unique and you face challenges that are different than other boroughs. And as your next mayor of London, I need to be here on the ground with you and understand what your struggles are. And that's why I'm here digitally live with you, so we can communicate. I'm literally going to read all your comments out. I'm going to be replying. This is a new way of doing politics. This is leaders that are accountable to the citizens, and that's what I want to talk about today. Unfortunately, on Sunday this past week, I was out actually in the street talking to my phone, doing one of my vlogs. You've seen me, I was doing this out on the streets, and suddenly I was surrounded by 10 police officers from the City of London Police. They arrived in 5 police vans, and they stopped me and they said that I was not allowed to campaign right now, which seemed very strange to me. They stopped me, they detained me, they fined me and my crew, and they banned us from campaigning. And we think that this is a fundamental violation of your democratic right. This is the birthplace of democracy, and yet free and fair elections cannot take place if you don't know who your candidates are. And I said to the officer, and you can watch the video, it's gone viral, it's been watched hundreds of thousands of times. This story was reported by the BBC, by the Daily Mail, and news organizations all around the world. I said to the officer, this seems politically motivated. And he got very angry and loud with me and said, this is not political. This is not political. And yet it seemed like we were being being watched and followed and tracked and singled out because of our activity. We went on to speak with our legal team, and we comprised this 5-page legal letter, which I posted on Instagram a few days ago. You can go read it in detail. And this was sent to Commissioner Ian Dyson of the City of London Police, Dame Cressida Dick, the Commissioner of the Metropolitan Police, and Chief Constable Paul Crowther, the Chief Constable of the British Transport Police. They've all been sent this. They've all written me back via email and acknowledged they have this, and they've sent some responses back to me, which I'll be sharing with you shortly. So we decided to continue going on. Again, we are doing this in 100% COVID secure manner. This bus has an antiviral fog put throughout the whole structure every night. We have temperature checks when people come in, face masks, sanitizers. This is run like any film production set in London, and there are a lot of them currently functioning. So if Apple TV right now is filming a series in London doing the same protocols, why can't we do the same? And that's why we've pushed forward, even though on Tuesday our bus was pulled over by the Metropolitan Police. Just now in Bexley, we were followed by police, and every day we are being watched and followed by police, but we're willing to put this on the line and face potential arrests because we believe in your democratic right to choose. And that's why we're here today. Again, we're doing this in a safe manner, and we encourage all other parties to continue campaigning in a safe manner. This includes the Tories, the Labour Party, the Lib Dems, the Green. All of us should be allowed to continue. And lastly, a lot of you had asked me on this broadcast, they said to you, Brian, when will you debate Sadiq Khan? When will you debate? And it's funny, a lot of people have gone to the mayor's social feeds and they said, why won't you debate Brian Rose? And so I just want to say, I am happy to debate the current mayor of London anytime, anywhere, anyhow. All he has to do is give me the platform and the time, and I'll be there. And we are the only candidate. We are the only viable candidate that can oppose him at this moment. So it makes sense for the two of us to have a debate. Again, I'm going to give you lots of facts and figures today on how I think he has failed. If he believes that I'm wrong, I would love for him to tell me, and let's have an open and honest conversation. You, the voter, can watch, and then you can make your decision. That would make me happy. At least the democratic process is respected. So I challenge you, Mr. Mayor, to a debate. Your format, your place, your time. We are ready and waiting for your response. So I'd like to get into today's broadcast, and I want to talk about the details of how our current mayor of London has failed our communities and our younger generation. Again, I want to see your comments below. I'll be going to them in about 2 or 3 minutes, but I want to tell you the facts. When the mayor was elected in 2016, he pledged, and I say, and this is a quote, he pledged to, quote, invest in and protect youth services in London right now. And that's exactly what he said. He promised that he would make London safer, but instead, the mayor has massively cut spending. And the youth services budget were cut by 46% between 2012 and 2019, 46%. And an even larger funding cut is being expected in 2020 and 2021. He also closed our youth centers. Since 2011, London has lost at least 100 youth centers. And the number went from 234 in 2011 down to 130 youth centers last year. That's a net loss of 104 sites. No wonder we are suffering from problems. More than 560 youth workers have lost their jobs. And guess what? That coincided with a rise in youth violence overall, as spending on the youth services were cut by 46%, and now 29 London councils have cut their budgets by a combined £36.3 million. Imagine that money being taken away from your community centers and helping the youth. And yet the mayor wonders why he's just had his 100th teenage murder on his watch. And guess what? There's more projected cuts to come. And this just shows this serial failure by our current mayor, because this is what I believe. I believe the current mayor doesn't care about our communities. I believe the current mayor doesn't care about our children, and I believe the current mayor never intended to keep his promises. And I ask you this: how can we believe anything he says to us? And it's our future, and we need to take ownership of it. So again, I want to go to your questions right now. First of all, tell me, what borough are you in, and what is the question you want to ask me? Next, I want you to answer this question, and it's a hard question. Do you think the mayor has failed our communities and younger generation by slashing the budgets and breaking his promises, and why? Do you think it was right for the police to detain us, to fine us, and ban us from campaigning last Sunday? And do you think it was politically motivated? And do you think that free and fair elections should take place on May 6th? And do we need new leadership, new ideas, and to take London in a new direction? I'm going to the comments right now, and there's a lot of them. All right, but keep these coming. A lot of them are coming from Instagram and YouTube and all sorts of platforms. I appreciate you. This is great. A couple quick ones from Instagram. We've got I always love the names on Instagram. Levdinino says, quote, what influence does the mayor of London have on 10 Downing Street? That's a great question. You know, the mayor of London is the mayor of one of the biggest cities and most important cities in the world. That leadership role is so important. So a lot of people say, well, the mayor has budget and control of the Metropolitan Police, which is true, of the Transport for London, which is true, but he doesn't have control of this or that. But it's a major leadership role of the 9 million citizens in one of the greatest cities in the world. So the mayor has a lot of power. And when we all decide on May 6th that we want new leadership in that office, we have power that can influence Downing Street, that can influence even major cities around the world. So we have a lot more power than you think. And we have a lot more power than just a mayor of another city, because London is so crucial and it's such a massive part of British GDP, of British tax revenues. The city of London, you know, is massive. And so we have a lot of power and control. And if we have the right ideas, we can literally bring the entire country with us on this new journey. I've got PD Sprintings on Instagram, says, be tough going forward, Brian, and win. And we will. We are very tough around here. And we try not to stop. That's why we're here on a Saturday working with you. I've got Luke on Instagram saying, hi, Brian. I live in Cambridge. What would you do to challenge knife crime? As Khan has done an awful job so far and people's lives are at risk. Good luck with your campaign. It's a great question, Luke. On his watch, knife crime has increased every single year. And I spoke recently with a very senior Metropolitan Police officer. And he said quite simply, we need this, Brian. We need more police on the streets, which I agree. We need better training for our officers, but also you can't blame the police for knife crime. When teenagers are killing other teenagers, it's not their fault, it's our fault. It's something we haven't done. We have to invest in our communities. We have to give our communities solutions so our children have something to do between the hours of 3:30 p.m. and 8:30 p.m., maybe when they get out of school, when they're going to school, and when their parents come home at night. I have solutions for that I want to show you today. I've got a couple other questions. These come from our website. By the way, you can go to brianformayor.london/bus and submit your question. Tell me what borough you're in and what question you want to ask. This one came in and it says, quote, just wanting to say well done, Brian, and wishing you well. You're making such an important contribution. Keep going. There are so many of us now. Thank you. I appreciate there are so many of us right now. And if you go to brianformayor.london/share, you can download posters and print them out. You can download our videos. You can download pictures and posts and send them out to your friends. The only way we're going to do this is together. So thank you so much. I've got Sandra on the website that says, quote, can you please confirm that you will not punish families who live in the congestion zone, as it costs £15 for my children to see me or my family? It has pulled families apart, and we all need to be able to see each other. Unquote. That's a great, great point. And I actually spoke with someone very senior in the Transport for London infrastructure the other day, and he said, Brian, congestion charges were never designed to raise income for TfL. They were designed to reduce pollution, and yet that's what the mayor has done. I am announcing my plans for a congestion charge holiday for 6 months after lockdown, which what that will do is bring people and commerce into the city so the businesses get revitalized and we see our city get back on track. And Sandra, that would apply to you as well. I think the congestion charge should not be used to generate money. It should not be used to punish you and families like yourself. It should be used to control traffic flow for a greener area, which I have a lot of plans for. And yes, we want to put a holiday on that. Another question from Daisy, from Brent, and we're coming to Brent soon via the website, asks, quote, will you be doing anything to help the unemployed and disabled? Why are you not visiting Brent? We are visiting Brent. We're coming everywhere now. We'll be posting exactly what we're going to do. And one thing we will be doing for the disabled is making sure their transport fares do not increase. The current mayor of London campaigned on not increasing transport fares for the elderly and disabled, and yet 4 weeks after he was elected in 2016, he raised transport fares for the disabled and the elderly. How can we believe anything he says? Also, unemployment. The biggest issue with unemployment is that we have to get London back to work. Plain and simple. Again, I was just out in Bexley at the Crossness pumping station, and that's a great example of British and London innovation. Now, back in the day, our River Thames was filled with sewage, human waste, and it was a massive problem that was causing disease and cholera. Let me ask you a question. If the current crop of politicians, if the mayor of London was in charge, if your current prime minister was in charge, they would have probably told you what they're telling you now. Stay inside and maybe don't go to the bathroom. That's what they would have said. And yet back in the times of the Victorian times and the Industrial Revolution, they found solutions. They created these incredible mechanical infrastructure to remove the pollution from a river. Something that seems impossible, right? We're faced now with a similar issue, an impossible biological problem that our politicians offer no solutions to. All they say is stay at home. I don't believe in that. I think we should now be calling on people like James Watt, people like Sir Joseph Bazalgette, and say, help us find solutions. Help us innovate out of the problem, and that's what I'm going to do as your next mayor of London. We're going to get London back to work safely. I believe we have the protocols in our hospitality industry to safely get our pubs and restaurants open. I think we can safely get 20% of our workforce back in our offices, and yet your leaders don't even look into that option. I haven't seen one study done on how we can get London back to work. And meanwhile, we have unemployed, we have mental health issues, we have our youth, which is now a lost generation, all because we're not at work. When we strengthen the economy, we will strengthen all things. A couple more comments, and I want to get on here. We got some of our regulars coming to visit us. We got Elle McPherson on Instagram saying, in the bus. What's up, Elle? Elle's in Miami. She's always here on these broadcasts. We really appreciate you, Elle. And thanks for coming in here and giving us a little recognition. Nice to see you up early in Miami as well. We've also got Gordon to 1984 says, quote, finally someone who I would listen to and who has actually done something with his life. That's a good point, Gordon. And you know, for the last 30 years, I've worked in industry. I started off when I was 19 years old. I worked at Ford Motor Company in Michigan, and it was an incredible, incredible experience for me because I got to see how a company held people accountable. I got to see how you balance a budget. And let me tell you, when you're at Ford Motor Company and you bring a project in $2 billion or pounds over budget, guess what? Everybody gets fired. And yet when the mayor does that to TfL, he gets a bailout from the government. And so I've learned so much being in industry. I worked in automotive, I worked in aerospace, I worked on Wall Street, I worked in the City of London, I've worked in tech startup, I've worked in digital media, and I've worked in digital education. And yes, I bring a wealth of experience. The problem with the current mayor is he's never run a business in his life. He's probably never done a deal in his life. He doesn't know how to bring people to the table and say, how can we make this work? Let's get some creativity and some ideas. And I'm going to bring that to the table on May 6th, and we're going to take the city in a new direction. So thanks for that comment. Let me do one more here. And let me keep going. I've got Real Freedom of Speech on YouTube says, quote, just do the opposite of Sadiq Khan and you won't go wrong. You know, that's a great comment. You know, when I first started looking at the mayor of London about 6 months ago, I said, none of this makes sense to me. Everything he does seems to be in the worst interest of the citizens. He closes our business down when we need our livelihoods. He closes our schools down when our kids need education. He doesn't build houses when we know we need them. He doesn't solve knife crime when we know it terrorizes our children. This man seems to do the opposite of what we need, and I finally figured it out. I know why he does that. Because him and his party pursue a different agenda. and it's not in the interests of you and me, the people on the ground, the everyday citizen. It's for the party agenda. And I don't know if it's some corporate donor or maybe it's his political career that's more important to him. But what I do know is this, and you know this too, his decisions are not in our best interests. And that's why I think these ideas resonate so much with you, is because my ideas make sense. They're like, yeah, Brian, this sounds good. Why don't we do this? And we can do this right now. Within a month of being in office, I can reverse all of his bad decisions and at least get us on track to building affordable housing, making our streets safe, making sure our TFL never goes bankrupt with creative revenue ideas that I bring to the table, and getting London back to work. This is what I will do, and I will start in the first 30 days of office. We can literally have a solution by June. Can you imagine? Or you can have 3 more years of Sadiq Khan. It's up to you. You've got to be registered to vote and make it happen on May 6th. So great comments. I'm going to come back to these in just a second. I want to get on to my second point, because I've already told you about the mayor, how he promised to make investments in our youth, and then he never delivered. And now I want to talk about what happens because he didn't deliver. So the impact of the mayor's broken promises are 3 things. First of all, we've seen a dramatic increase in youth crime. Second of all, we've seen higher youth unemployment. And finally, we've seen a mental health crisis for our children. I have a 16-year-old at home. I've got boys that are home 3 and 4 years old. I left them this morning playing Legos with their mom, and I don't want them to grow up with a mental health crisis. And yet, look at what's going on in the world right now. There's no roadmap out of this lockdown. They can't go to school. How can you ask a child to go to school through a Zoom call and a screen and not expect that to affect their mental health? This is a real crisis. It's having long-term ramifications, and every single day we accept our current leaders' ideas and solutions is a day that hurts our children, it hurts our livelihoods, and it hurts our future. And I want to look into some of the things that happened with your mayor. I've spoke about this before, but I feel it's important. I want to speak about it again. Youth crime is up, with a shocking rise in knife crime for every single year the mayor has been in office. Look at the statistics. I've already published an entire hour episode on this called Real Deal on my YouTube channel and on my website. The current mayor just recorded his 100th teenage murder on his watch. Just think about that. 100th teenage murder. Some of these are 14 years old. It's unacceptable, and we've heard the excuses, and all he seems to do is blame other people. The youth offending rates have increased 10% in London, from just 33% in 2006 to 43% currently. That is double that of England and Wales. Double that of England and Wales. And between 2012 and 2017, the number of under 25s who were killed doubled. It doubled, increasing year on year since 2014. The numbers don't lie. It's very easy to see when this mayor came into office, because crime goes up. That's what the statistics show. Last year there were 135 killings in London, and 30% of those crimes in London were committed by young people, involve violence. This is what we're teaching our children to do under your current mayor, and I think this is unacceptable. But it gets worse. We see higher youth unemployment. In the UK, 602,000 young people were unemployed in the last quarter. That's an increase of 53,000 from the previous quarter, and an increase of 101,000 young people from the year before. It's the highest level of youth unemployment in the past 5 years, and unemployment in London is now most prevalent amongst those aged 16 to 24. These are not what we want these kids to be doing at these ages. We can't have them unemployed. It leads to crime, it leads to problems, it leads to mental health issues. It's no longer acceptable. And this comes to my final point. We are in a mental health crisis for our children. This cannot be ignored. And let me tell you some of the statistics. Mental health hospitalization admissions for young children have increased by 68% in 10 years. Just think about that. Mental health hospital admissions up 68% in 10 years. In London, 1 in 10 young people have a diagnosable mental health disorder, 10% of our young people. And that's 3 in every school class, and more than 100,000 across the capital. And now between 1 in 12 and 1 in 5 in 15 children and young people deliberately self-harm. Self-harm is something that is always a product of their mental health and the circumstances they're going through. We must address these issues now, but the problem is this. The current mayor of London He doesn't care about our communities. The current mayor of London doesn't care about our children. And the current mayor of London, in my opinion, never intended to keep those promises back in 2016. And he's not going to keep the promises that he's talking about in 2021. I have a simple question to you. Do you want 3 more years of this? That's what you're going to have to ask yourself on May 6th when you go to the polls, because it's our future and we must take ownership of it right now. All right, I want to hear your comments. So please, whatever your platform you're in, if you're watching me now, or even if you're watching this later, leave me a question below. First of all, tell me what borough you live in or what city you live in. It could be anywhere around the world you live in, and tell me what's the question you want to ask me, what's the challenge you face. Next, answer me honestly. Do you think the mayor has failed our communities and failed our younger generation by slashing his budgets and breaking his promises, and tell me why? Thirdly, do you think it was right for the police to detain us, to fine us, and ban us from campaigning? And do you think that was a political move? And finally, do you think that free and fair elections should take place on May 6th? And do you think that London needs new leadership, new ideas, and a new direction? Leave me your comments now. I'm going to go to them now. I'm getting so many comments here. I've probably never seen this many. Make sure you share this video right now with your friends and family, and leave me comments and let me know what is on your mind. I've got Julie Gilliam here on YouTube that says May elections must go ahead. You're so right about that. May elections must continue, and we are really campaigning for free and fair elections. I've got Sean David Tonkin on Instagram that says, where and what time will you be in Croydon, Brian? Sean, I'm here right now. All right, I'm going through Croydon as we speak, but guess what? I'll be back to Croydon as well, and we're going to find a way to meet up with you and talk to you. In the meantime, go to our website, leave me a question, and we can really have a conversation offline. We got Conscious Cabbage, great name, on YouTube that says, debate Khan on Joe Rogan for 5 hours, please. I've never heard of a better idea. In fact, Joe Rogan offered to use his show for a debate for the last presidential elections. And he thought, why not have 3 hours where these 2 gentlemen could speak and present their ideas in a live streaming format and let the people decide. Nothing weird, nothing fancy, nothing strange, just make it happen. So I think that's a great idea. I've been on Joe Rogan's show before. I was with Joe back in 2012. I think it was episode 271 on the Joe Rogan Experience. You can go see me. So Joe, if you're up for it, we've got to find a way, but let's get us on your show. Let's stream out this debate, and then let's let the people decide. So that's a great idea. I appreciate that. We can do it by Zoom call, or we can get us all in a plane and get out there. As long as we do it COVID safe, I'm all for it. And that's a great comment. Thank you, Conscious Cabot. We got Zebra Haas on Instagram says, use your brain, vote for Brian. All right, and if you read it, it makes more sense because Brain and Brian are the same letters, and a lot of people actually misspell my name, so that's a great one. I like it. We got Julie in Croydon right here. I'm going right through your neighborhood, Julie. Ask, quote, who authorized Khan's extension as mayor? And Julie makes a great point here. If you think about it, the last year, the mayor has been unelected. It's been unelected. Did you vote for the mayor to be in power in the year of 2020 from May until May 2021? You didn't. This is undemocratic what's happening right now. They postpone elections, and they're thinking about postponing them once again. We demand free and fair elections on May 6th. If we have to do it by postal vote, that's fine with us, but we have to have free and fair elections, and we must be allowed to campaign. Otherwise, this becomes political in itself, and you're removing your democratic right to choose. So thank you, Julie, for bringing that up. We've got Christina Lazelle on YouTube that says, quote, Khan has overstayed his welcome. If it wasn't for COVID, I doubt he would still be mayor. What London needs is a businessman. So you will definitely get my vote, Brian. Thank you so much for that, Christina. I appreciate that. Look, let's be honest. London exists as a city because it was always a center of commerce. The Romans didn't come here because they thought it was a picturesque place to be. They went here because right on the River of Thames, there was a center of commerce where people aggregated to do business, to exchange ideas. We need a mayor that thinks about London as a business community and finds many creative ways and innovative solutions to get people back to work and strengthen our economy. I know how to do deals. I know how to run a board meeting. I know how to get in there and contact people at the high level and make things happen. Our current mayor has never run a business in his life. He's had a career in politics. He's using this office as a stepping stone to future offices in politics, and the entire time you and I pay as citizens of London. It's unacceptable, and I appreciate your vote, Julie. I've got 30 years of experience in the industry, and I'm going to bring all of that to the table. To be honest with you, my business is going really well right now. My broadcasting has never been more popular. I am putting everything on hold to be your next mayor of London. I'm putting my personal life on hold, my business on hold, my broadcasting on hold to become your next mayor of London, because I can't sit by and watch these current politicians run the city I love into the ground. I've been a Londoner for 21 years. I love this city. I've been a citizen for 14 years. My children were born here, and I plan on being dying in this city. And it's given me so much, and I feel like I need to contribute. So thank you, Julie. A couple more comments here. We got Carolina on Instagram saying, quote, "Please help us. We have enough with this situation. Bring back work and money. I don't have any food at home." And Carolina, I appreciate that. You know, we were at the Barking Food Bank with my good friend Obi. I think it was on Saturday when we were embarking in Dagenham. And he showed me everything he was doing there. We brought him, again, a lot of food and long life milk and long life juices and tinned meat and tinned vegetables. And Obi said to me, he said, "Brian," he said, you have no idea who needs food now. It's not those that used to be impoverished. It's everybody who's struggling right now. And so I totally understand where you're coming from. We've got to get the necessary resources to our people. We've got to get them food. We've got to get this economy back on track. That's the only solution to our problems, and I promise to make that happen. We've got Doug Taylor who says, quote, "If possible, would you and Mayor Khan go on a live panel on Question Time? Like I said, I'm ready anywhere, anytime to go and debate the mayor. You tell me when, you tell me where, and I'll be there." I've also got Michael Venom Page here on Instagram, our good friend Michael. Michael is an incredible fighter who fights for Bellator. And I really appreciate Michael. He's been on London Real twice. I've actually been out in his gym at London Shoot Fighters, and he taught me some of his hands down style. And I remember that day. It was fantastic, Michael. I actually incorporated a lot of those moves into my own shadowboxing routines. And Michael says simply, I think it's a big celebrating emoji that he gave me. So thank you, Michael. I appreciate. Michael's been super supportive of our campaign to be mayor. Michael can see that there's some real issues out there. I've known Michael for 5 and 6 years right now, and I think he knows that I'm the man for this job. And Michael, I appreciate you. Michael contributes a lot to the communities of London. He really is involved. I've spent a lot of time with him, and I really appreciate your contributions. So thank you very much, sir. Some great people coming on our stream today. Lastly, before I move on, I want to say Randy on YouTube says, quote, "Croydon is bankrupt. What are you going to do about it?" And that's a great question. When you look into the Croydon and the issues I was talking about, £67 million budget failure this year. And when you look into what Croydon did, it was a simple lack of leadership and lack of accountability. What happened is the local councils decided to start doing massive real estate deals. They borrowed £545 million over the last 3 years to build a shopping center and a hotel and set up a property development business. There was no corporate oversight happening in this borough, and I can't believe the mayor allowed that to happen. And I can't believe anything else. So I'm just hearing sirens here. You never know what's going to happen. I can't believe the mayor allowed that to happen. I can't believe that there was not better oversight for our boroughs. And yet the people of Croydon are going to pay for this. They're going to suffer. Their families are going to suffer. This isn't acceptable. We need a mayor that can hold people accountable. We need a mayor that can, if I looked at this business deal, I could see in a heartbeat that a local council has no business borrowing £500 million on a highly volatile property deal. That's not what local councils should be doing, but they probably forced that way or felt forced that way, maybe because of lack of funding. Again, you always have to look to the top. What was the mayor doing about this? And if you ask him about it, he'll probably blame Boris Johnson, which is all he does with any failure in London. It's always the national government's failure. And it's curious that that's the man that he'll probably have to beat for his next job he wants, which is prime minister. So again, those two play politics while you and I suffer, and that's what makes us strong, because we are an independent candidate. I don't have a party to answer to. I don't have hundreds of years of history. I don't have tens of millions of pounds of donations or a committee I don't have to check with. I didn't check with anybody on this broadcast today. I check with myself. Am I following my heart? Is this in the interest of the people I care about? Is this in the interest of the city I love that I call home? If it is, I want to do it. Period. I don't have a party to answer to, or some special interests, or even some strange donors. I've got none of that. And that's why I think we've had so much success with the people who see us for what we are, someone who cares and someone who wants to see London do better and put London first and be completely transparent. Again, just to be clear, my channels stay open as your next mayor. My 5 million subscribers, my 500 million views, these channels go right with me into City Hall, and I will be having these broadcasts with you on a regular basis, so we can constantly exchange ideas, and I can you can hold me accountable to what I'm doing as your next mayor. So this is great stuff. I want to get into my final point, and then of course get your final questions as well. And I want to talk about the communities, because this is where all of the mayor's failures seem to finally come, and that is the community crisis. And again, I want to talk to you about how I understand community. I don't think the mayor has probably been out in your communities to see what's happening locally, but I know quite a bit about communities. Actually, before I started London Real about 12 years ago, my martial arts instructor was actually highly involved in the communities. And I went to him and I said, this is before I had a family, before I met Mariana and moved in with her and her daughter. And I was just a bachelor living alone. And I said, I want to do something for my community. And he said, Brian, I'll never forget this. He said, Brian, if you change a child, you can change a community. And at the time I thought, that's crazy. How can changing one child change a community? And I kept talking to him, and I found a group that I could volunteer with and mentor. And I mentored a young boy about 10 years old in the community of Homerton for an entire year. I spent every Saturday with him for a year. It was 4 hours. It was exhausting. I had no parenting skills. Sometimes he was great fun to be with, and sometimes he was difficult to be with, but I had to make sure I mentor him. I gave him a father figure, and it was an incredible time, and it got me really connected with how a community works and how essential our children are in the community. For the past 10 years, I've been building the London Real community. Now it's 5 million people worldwide that have now built around a community. And this is what I've learned. A community needs 5 things. A community means this: people who want to help, in this case me, with London Real and with the mentoring I did. People who need help. A lot of times it's my viewers. In this case, it was that young man that I mentored in Homerton. The third thing, infrastructure, location, or a process. In this case, we have our digital media. Sometimes you have a community center. Sometimes you have a process. That's great. The fourth thing you need is cash, and I want to talk about that shortly. And the fifth thing you need is communication. If you don't know that someone wants to help you, how can you ever find out? If you don't know that someone needs your help, how can it make it happen? And so it's all about how you pair together these people and these entities to make sure that it's a win-win scenario for all sorts of people. And actually, I was having this same conversation in my studio a couple months ago with David Hay. He's the world championship boxer from Bermondsey, which we're probably right near that borough right now. And he came over and we spent about 4 hours on a Sunday night talking about this. And he said, Brian, they're closing down the boxing gyms in these communities. He said, Brian, these young men have nothing to do with that energy. He said, I used to be a young man. I had some anger, some frustration. I needed to find a way to channel that, with his fists. And he said, it kills me to see these community centers being shut down. And I said, David, I've got some ideas and I've got some solutions. And so it's about providing those opportunities for our young people. And it's about providing those community centers the funds they need. And that comes to that fourth part that I was talking about, and that is cash. Let's be honest. The biggest problem we have with our community centers around here is they shut down because they don't get budget from their council or from their mayor. It's always one of the first things to go when they slash budgets. You probably know what I'm talking about. And yet they're so essential in making sure our children don't result to knife crime and they don't result to unemployment, and they have basically a lost generation. And so this is my solution to the cash. And I'll be honest, it's not my idea. It actually comes from Jamal Edwards, MBE. Jamal is a fellow YouTuber just like me. He created SBTV, one of the biggest hip-hop video channels in history. Put London on the map, put UK grime on the map, kicked off great artists like Ed Sheeran and Dizzy Rascal. And he was actually a guest on my show on London Real about 5 or 6 years ago. And he was explaining, or he explained later how he went to his community center in Acton and he saw that it was closed. And that was the same community that taught Jamal video editing skills and music production skills that allowed him to create this multi-million-pound business. And he said, why is that community center closed? Let's see how we can open it. And he reached out to Google and he reached out to the Wellcome Trust, and he got hundreds of thousands of corporate donations, and the community center was reopened. I want to use Jamal's model to start opening up community centers around the city. I've shared these ideas when I went and spoke live in Homerton. I shared these ideas when I went and spoke live at Tower Hamlets last year, and everyone in the community thought this was an excellent idea. They thought this has real possibility, and they said, we're sick and tired of going to City of Hall and being in meetings with the mayor and asking, where did the money go? Because it never came to our community center. I'm talking about a new kind of community center, one where you can go and practice yoga, learn how to cook, one where grandma can go, the kids can go. You can find about employment opportunities, about housing, a fun place to go, not the funny smelling community center that teaches ballroom dancing once a week. I'm talking about a properly funded community center that makes sure we get our kids off the streets, that shows them skills like entrepreneurship, that shows them a future. I have a plan to do this through corporate donations. I'm going to get on the phone with the Amazons of the world, the Googles of the world, the Barclays of the world and say this: you have done business in London for many years. It's time you give something back. And guess what? I'm a businessman. I'm going to make you an offer you can't refuse. This is a win-win situation for everyone. You do something great for the community recognizes you, and we win and we win. The problem is your current mayor of London, I mean, he wouldn't come up with this idea if he hit himself in the head, because he doesn't have this kind of innovation. He's never been in the business world. That's why we need new ideas, new direction, and someone like me who's come from 30 years in the business world. I'm going to bring new ideas and innovation that government's never seen. And that's why we look at politics and it seems like it's in the dark ages, right? Type in yes if you think I'm right. If it looks like the government, it seems like it's operating in the 1960s. Their ideas are old, their plans are old, their methods of communication are old, everything about them is tired. And I think that era is over. This era is about communication digitally. It's about exchanging ideas every single day live through these social platforms. It's about me putting the best ideas out there. I don't care if it's a labor idea or a conservative idea. I don't care if it's a green agenda or a liberal dem agenda. I just don't care. If it benefits the community of London, I'm all in. So let's get the best ideas and let's implement them, and let's stop accepting excuses from our government, because it's not needed. We have the greatest minds in the world. We have the greatest city in the world. We have the greatest resources in the world. Why don't we just make it happen? And that's why I'm running to be your next mayor of London. These are some of my many solutions to London's problems. They're actually all spelled out in detail on our website, brianformayor.london. I've got 12 detailed policies. I've got 12 policy videos. You can learn all about this stuff. So I want to hear from you for the last time. Come in and type in your comments right now. First of all, tell me, what borough do you live in? What question do you want to ask me? What challenge are you facing? Next of all, tell me, do you think that the mayor, and be honest with me, has the mayor failed our communities and failed our younger generation by slashing budgets, allowing knife crime to rise, and closing down our community centers? Tell me, is that the way you feel? Be honest. Next, do you think it was right for the police to detain us, to fine us, and to ban us from campaigning? And do you think that was a political move? And lastly, tell me, do you think that we should have free and fair elections on May 6th? Do you think also that it's time, maybe after 5 long years, to have a new direction? Maybe have some new ideas, maybe have someone new at the head of this city that can take London into this brand new century. I believe it is. I believe it's time to change the game and change our policies, but I want to hear from you right now. So again, type your comments in right now. This is your last chance for me to read out your comments on air. But again, if you miss us here, leave us your comments afterwards. You can also go to brianformayor.london/bus, where I get all of those questions, and I'm going to come and see you in a borough near you. Tons of questions coming in here, and I appreciate all of them. We got Goval Hogan on Instagram says, quote, "Elect this man. The world needs guys like Brian in office." Thank you so much. I appreciate that. We got Philip Hugan on YouTube that says, quote, "I live in the USA, but seems to me London is calling from the underground." I love that. "You, sir, are speaking about solutions. I am listening. I hope others are too." Thank you, Philip. We honestly think that London will be a model for every city in the future. Wait until they see how we get our city back to work. Wait until they see how we tackle crime. Wait until they see how we build affordable homes, and wait until they see how we finally show and create a world-class transport infrastructure. I mean, seriously, we are going to be the best city in the world. I'm confident, but we have to make it happen on May 6th. We've got to get out there and vote. We're going up a very, very embedded party and a party system that doesn't like independent voices and it doesn't like change. I've got Corrado Mozilla on Instagram that says, quote, "Please help nightclubs to not be neglected when it comes to reopening. We have been closed for 1 year. Hospitality is a key sector in London." And Corrado, I couldn't agree with you more. The hospitality sector, according to Public Health England's own data, is responsible for only 3% of COVID transmissions. 3%. Why is that? Because a lot of these venues went above and beyond the requests and regulations when it came to COVID safe. They had one-way systems. They had contactless payments. They had hand sanitizers. They were wearing face masks. And yet they closed down our pubs, our cafes, our bars, and our nightclubs. We need to find solutions to keep these places open when we can minimize COVID transmissions. This is the same with gyms, where gyms are only 1.7% of a COVID transmission. So Corrado, I'm with you. This is a major part of the economy. I think hospitality is responsible for 15% of employment in this country. That's millions and millions of jobs and billions of pounds in income. Let's find a way to keep it open. I'm with you 100%. We've got Fabulous Brad on Instagram. That's a fabulous handle. He says, quote, signed up to vote just for you, Brian. Thank you, Brad. I appreciate that. He must have gone to votefirst.london, which is a website where in 5 minutes you can register to vote. Do it right now if you want to make a difference. Brad went on to say, I know you can do this. The world is a scary place right now, but you will bring our fabulous city back to its world-class status. Brad, thank you so much. I appreciate you. And again, actually, I was talking to somebody in my lobby last night. He said, Brian, I see what you're doing. He said, you're fighting back against the police. They're trying to stop you. I support you. And I said, are you registered to vote? And he said, I said, look, you know, you can share my videos. You can download my posters and put them in your window. You can tell your friends and family about Brian for mayor. But if you don't register to vote and vote on May 6th, we have no chance. All right. So right now, wherever you are watching this, go to votefirst.london and register to vote. It takes 5 minutes. You'll get a letter from your council, and we can literally make this happen on May 6th. So thank you, Brad. Let's not get complacent, folks. No matter how good we feel about what we're doing here, we have to vote this in place on May 6th. So thank you so much. A couple more comments here. I'll wrap up. We got Ann, Anastasia, Nepsi on YouTube that says, quote, you are definitely a progressive thinker, and the people of London will absolutely benefit from your lead. Best wishes from Ontario, Canada. Thank you so much. We appreciate all of our fans and followers from around the world. I've got Warlord O says, quote, Brian would be the best mayor of London. Brian would be the best mayor London ever had. Anyone with half a brain knows Khan is paid under the table to destroy the working class. I appreciate your thoughts, Warlord. One thing I do know is whatever the mayor is currently doing is not working for any of us. We can all see that. These are the wrong ideas. We believe we have the best ideas for the future, and I appreciate you. I got Django Reloaded on Instagram, says, quote, I'm literally crying. Such a beautiful speech. How was the Darwin House visit? Thank you, Django. It's a great name as well. And look, I get really passionate about this stuff because I love this city. I love this future that I can envision right now. And honestly, the future without these new ideas makes me very, very sad and depressed. So that's why I get so passionate about this. It was great to go visit Charles Darwin House. It was closed because of COVID, so we had to just walk around the outside, but it was great being in Bromley, great being in Bexley, great being in Croydon, and great we're going through Greenwich right now. It's great to be out on the roads, really seeing what these communities are like, because every borough has its challenges and they're all unique. So thank you for that. I got Laura, Targeted Individual on YouTube, says, quote, good man, Brian, hugs from Ireland, enjoyed volunteer working with you back in 2012. We must have done some volunteering, and thank you, Laura. I appreciate that. We're always trying to give back to the communities, and it's important that we do that. That's when you really understand the problems of the community. And I want to finish out with one comment that came from our website here, and that's this. We've got Christine in Haringey says, quote, not a question, just some words of support. I've been following you, Brian, and London Real for about a year now. You're the refreshing breath of air that London needs as its next mayor. Your arrest and fine last week was disgusting. I'm a professional singer who has gone from a busy and fulfilling career to now having my industry decimated and where I'm barely surviving on benefits with rapidly increasing debts. This is so hard to read, Christine. Thank you so much for sharing this. She continues, and I consider myself one of the lucky ones, even at that state. She goes on, London needs to reopen. If I could come down today and shake your hand in person, I would. Thank you for all the work you've been doing. You are appreciated. That's Christine in Haringey, and thank you so much, Christine. It breaks my heart to hear your story. There are so many people like you out there that are struggling, that can't go back to work, and they look at the leadership and they just know something's wrong. They know those people don't care about us, and they can see what we're doing and the energy we have and the ideas we have, and they see us getting shut down by the police, and they say, something's not right here. This seems politically motivated. And Christine says she's one of the lucky ones. I mean, we're going out to food banks here in London, bringing them food for people that are starving. You know, 43% of children in Greenwich, which I'm going through right now, that's 21,000 children are in poverty. You know, this is London. This is the United Kingdom. This isn't a third world country, and yet we're behaving like one right now. UNICEF, for its first time in its entire history, came to provide food aid to London just a month or two ago. If that doesn't say there's something wrong with the mayor of London, I don't know what does. And you know what? The buck stops with the mayor. And when I'm your next mayor of London, I will be responsible for what happens in this city. I'm not going to blame someone else. The buck stops with me. I take extreme ownership of all the problems in this city, and I'm also going to bring solutions. And so I just want to finish off by saying thank you all for your support. If this video has meant anything to me, please share it with your friends. Please go to our website, brianformayor.london/share, and download the videos, download the assets, download the posters and print them out. I want to see them in the windows as I drive through the boroughs of London. You can volunteer for us as well. Our volunteering battle and our Brian for Mayor Army is going to be enabled this week, and we're going to be going all over London, so I appreciate this. Also, speak to your friends and family and say, hey, have you heard about this Brian guy? Have you heard about him? Yeah, I know he's got a funny accent. Yeah, I know he wears these suits. But guess what? He really cares, and he wants to change this city, and he's a man of the people, and he understands the problems we face, and he's going to make a difference, and that's true. I will make a difference, and talk to them about me, because again, let's be honest, if we don't make this happen as people, if we don't make this happen as a community, it's not going to happen. We've got to register to vote and vote on May 6th, and again, we've got everything working against us behind the scenes. You got the political infrastructure, they've got funding, they've got corporate sponsors, they got agendas. We're going to have to work against that. So let's come together, let's unite, let's vote, and let's take London in a new direction. Again, we've got the best ideas in the business, and I promise you, I will not stop. I'm going to keep going to every single borough. We're going to go out there in the face of fear and potential arrest like today, and we're going to keep bringing to this every day. I just want to thank you for staying with us. I want to thank the entire team here at Brian for Mayor and London for Real for doing a great job. They're behind the cameras over there. They're doing an amazing job. And I want to thank you for being here with me. And like I said, leave us a comment, share this video, and show your support. We're going to keep going. We got 6 days left until the election. We're going to keep bringing it to you. And I'll keep going to see those boroughs. So that's it. I'm going to wrap this up. This has been Battle Bus Live. Couldn't do it without you. I appreciate all the support, and I will see you on our broadcast from the back of the bus for next time. Thank you so much.